And for our final micro talk today, we have Xalavier Nelson Jr. Come on up. Oh. Make sure you speak directly into the microphone.
Gotcha. All right. There we go. Hello, everyone. My name is Xalavier Nelson Jr., and I just have done a lot of stuff, and I'm very tired. This is an incomplete collage of some of the stuff I've worked on. I've worked on Hypnospace Outlaw, SkateBird, We Are The Caretakers, and Can Androids Pray, which was just named by Wireframe magazine as one of the 25 best games of 2019, and it's playable back there. I have been in physical games for a while, including working on the Strata sourcebook for the wildly popular Spire RPG. I have bylines everywhere from PC Gamer to Polygon. I was the columnist of the former for 2 years, which did not help with me not being tired. I also go around the world running weird games and doing talks, including at this place. So, having had all of those experiences, having been in so many situations, roles, and dealing with different scales of project and having so many friends who are in the same position, I realized that creators today are facing a universal problem, and it is that we are prisoners of our own worlds, or more accurately, prisoners of our own world building. And to understand what that means, we first have to introduce two concepts: continuity and consistency. Continuity is what most people think of when they think of world building. It's lore, it's exposition, it's a chronological timeline. It is an interconnected series of events and information, usually depicted in order that together forms a logical whole. Now, this sounds like that's what plot means, right? And plot is good. Plot is even essential. However, its simplicity is both its strength and its weakness, as illustrated when we look at the concept of consistency as applied to world building. Consistency is the overall principles, themes, and emotional dynamics of a world, which, when combined with stories and characters, allows an endless number of stories to emerge from the same foundation. To really make the difference between these concepts stark, we can strip down the wording for them even further. Continuity is how audiences understand stories. Consistency is how audiences connect with stories. Your graph of plot points means nothing in and of itself. Consistency, the characters, the world, the principles that underlie that story. Continuity exists for consistency's sake. Your world building leads to a point, and if it doesn't, then consistency, robbed of consistency, continuity is a hollow shell. However, we live in a continuity-obsessed world. A world of cinematic universes and billion-dollar franchises that exist on a number of plot points and your knowledge of them to make you feel good about yourself, with streaming and wikis and an endless catalog of things to debate over and fact-check. What this has resulted in is creators being paralyzed before they take the first step into their new creations because they feel like they have to have an entire universe worked out and airtight first. And I'm here to ask you, to implore you, to believe that this is not, in fact, the case. I launched a game this week because I thought that launching a game before I flew 14 hours to Toronto was a good idea for some reason. It's called An Airport for Aliens, currently run by dogs. It's a first-person, open-world narrative puzzle game about navigating a world entirely filled with dogs and finding moments to reconnect with your partner, who is the only other human left in the universe. Just you and your partner, separated, working all the time, but finding the moments that you have together and finding joy in them. I never say what happens to the humans or to the aliens because it doesn't matter. What matters is that there's dogs now. I have sat in too many meetings for too many hours explaining plot points that happened 250 years ago in some random universe instead of focusing on the interesting and fascinating and compelling and nuanced work that we are attempting to communicate today in our story now. And that should not be the case. our continuity-obsessed world would have you believe that you must have an entire symphony, complex and airtight, sketched out before you begin the first page. But why bind yourself to a piece of paper with notes on it when you could be jazz, skilled, yes, ordered, yes, but improvisational and passionate and directed to a purpose? When I called this talk, we don't talk about the toilets. Toilets is meant to be metaphorical. It can be anything that's important, sure, but at the end of the day, doesn't matter to the vision of your world unless you decide so otherwise. If you have a world where the exciting stuff happens after everything becomes neon, then you just tell that world. You don't have to explain it to anyone. As a storyteller, when you say something exists, it exists. And at that point, people can begin to care at what you're saying with it. If I've not made myself clear enough by now, continuity is for nerds. And the nerds won't care in the first place if you haven't given them something to care about. Your airtight plot points and detailing what happened in the War of El Shah 17 million years ago in some timeline hidden somewhere in the game does not matter if the stories and overall purpose that world building works towards are relevant and compelling today, now, in your story as it exists. You're a storyteller. You can just say something, and then it's there. That's the magic of storytelling. It is the implicit contract that all of us buy into when we come into a new fictional universe. And we should not allow the internet to scare us off from simply owning the freedom and joy that ability gives us to touch our audiences. So when do we talk about the metaphorical toilets? When should we talk about the metaphorical toilets? When do we have to explain ourselves? It turns out the answer is only when we want to. And if we accept that as the answer to our world building, we'll be world building with purpose and with joy instead of obligation. And we'll be making a world that our audiences will joyfully come to care about. Thank you.